The Senate will come to order. Senator West, you're recognized.
Mr. President, at this time, I'd like to pull down Committee Substitute Senate Bill 650 to work on some perfecting amendments.
Members, Senator West made a motion to pull down, temporarily withdrawing Senate Bill 650. Is there objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Senator Milliton is recognized for a motion to suspend the regular order of business on the committee substitute to Senate Bill 1006.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, so move. Members, this is committee substitute to Senate Bill 1006, which provides much-needed transparency to our insurance market for policyholders in Texas. Today, when a policyholder is canceled or non-renewed, the policyholder may request a justification for the declination, cancellation, or non-renewal from the insurer. However, many policyholders don't know that they have the ability to request that justification. Senate Bill 1006 addresses this issue by requiring insurers to provide policyholders or prospective policyholders with a justification for declination, cancellation, or non-renewal. Additionally, the bill requires insurers to report information to TDI regarding written statements of the reasons for declination, cancellation, or non-renewal of policies on a quarterly basis by zip code. Under the law, the written statement must include a statement of the precise incident, circumstance, or risk factors applicable to the policyholder that violates any applicable guidelines, state the source of information that the insurer relied on to make the determination, and specify any other information considered relevant by the Commissioner. And this bill will bring much needed transparency for policyholders and provide clarity on what is driving the lack of availability in the insurance marketplace. And with that, I move suspension.
Senator Milliton moves suspension of the regular order of business on the committee substitute to Senate Bill 1006. Is there objection? Hearing none, the rules are suspended. The chair lays out on second reading Senate Bill 1006. The secretary will read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 1006 relating to declination, cancellation, or non-renewal of insurance policies.
Senator Milliton is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, what this amendment does is it requires TDI to post the reports on declination, cancellation, and non-renewal.
Excuse me, Senator Milliton, we need to lay out the amendment first.
I'm sorry.
Secretary will read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by Middleton.
Senator Middleton.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Members, so what this amendment does is it requires TDI to post the quarterly reports on declination, cancellation, and non-renewal to the department's website. I move adoption.
Senator Middleton has moved adoption of floor amendment number 1. Is there objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Following amendment, Secretary will read the caption.
Floor amendment number 2 by Hughes.
Chair recognizes Senator Middleton on the amendment. Senator Hughes on the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, we have in our possession a document which has been publicized, and I won't read the name of the carrier, but this is from an insurance company to an insured, and it says, notice of non-renewal of insurance. It says, we will not renew this policy when it expires. Your insurance will cease on the expiration date shown above. And the notice goes on. The reason for non-renewal is we have learned from your Facebook page that your operations include trade association involved in promoting social political causes related to energy production. This is not an acceptable exposure under carriers' business segments guidelines. Now, we did meet with the carrier, and they said they probably shouldn't have put it in those words, but that's what this notice says. We're inquiring how many other notices like this have gone out, and that's ongoing. And so the amendment that we offer says, for the reports that are required under Senator Middleton's bill, the amendment just says a report under this section must disclose any decision to decline to issue, cancel, or refuse to renew an insurance policy that was based on a score based on measuring exposure to long-term environmental, social, or governance risks, or DEI. That's what the amendment does. It's reporting. It's consistent with the bill, and I believe it's acceptable to the author.
Senator Hinojosa of Hidalgo, for what purpose?
Senator Hughes, yield for a couple of questions.
Senator Hughes, do you yield?
Of course, I'll yield.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Hughes, I like your amendment, the first part, that they have to report under this section must disclose any decision to decline to issue, cancel, or refuse to renew an insurance policy that was based on a score that is based on measuring exposure to long-term environmental, social, or governance risk. So, but what is this? I need a better explanation, or diversity, equity, and inclusion factors. How do you work that in?
Senator, if an insurance carrier is considering non-economic, non-coverage factors, non-risk factors like that, like your political positions or your race or your sex, we want to know about that. If they're playing politics with the insurance market, that's all. This is just about disclosing if that's what they're doing.
So if they, for example, refuse to renew a policy based on your SIP code because there are too many minorities there, they got to disclose that?
Yes, sir. That's a great example. That's a great example. If they're using non-underwriting reasons, non-insurance reasons, political reasons, speech reasons, because of the color of your skin or because of your parents, if they're doing something like that, we want to know about it.
So if there's neighborhoods where maybe there are a group of gay people or transgender people living, and they cancel the policies or fail to renew the policy, they have to state the reasons why.
Senator, that's the idea. If they're looking at anything other than underwriting reasons, risk, insurance reasons that are, again, these are regulated companies. The Texas Department of Insurance regulates these carriers. And if they're playing politics for the reasons they're declining somebody coverage, we want to know about it.
One more question. I guess if they decide, well, we don't want to renew a policy to Hispanics or African Americans, they have to disclose that.
That's exactly right. Hard to imagine they do that, but we sure want to know about it if they are.
Thank you, Senator Hughes, for answering my question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Menendez, for what purpose?
Questions of the author of the amendment, Mr. President.
Senator Hughes, do you yield?
Of course, I'll yield.
So, Senator Hughes, I share similar concerns to Senator Hinojosa. I'm right with you up until you get to that line 11. Question, has DEI ever been taken into consideration or caused, do we know of this ever being a problem?
Senator, I want to be clear. This is about decisions to issue, decline to issue, cancel, or refuse to renew a policy. Now, the document I read from earlier talked about how someone was non-renewed because they were in their Facebook page talked about energy and oil and gas. That was shocking to a lot of people. We want to peer into the keyhole and just see what's going on. We hope that no company is declining coverage or non-renewing based on DEI, based on factors like this. This is just saying if you're doing it, you better disclose it to us. Hopefully the effect will be they'll stop doing it.
So what you're hoping to do with this amendment is that the insurance company, when it reports, that if they report a denial, they do so, they include an environmental, a social governance risk, or a diversity, equity, or an inclusion factor. And I guess who decides what those factors are?
Well, Senator, again, this is about why the insurance company chose to decline to issue, cancel, or refuse to renew. So this is about their processes. One would think they would decline to issue or renew or cancel because of claims or because of other factors like that. If they're not, if they're doing it on factors like this, we want to know about it. So if they're doing business like an insurance company you would expect them to do, regulated by the Texas Department of Insurance, they wouldn't be affected by this. But if they're playing politics and using insurance coverage to do that, that's what this amendment's about.
So one of my concerns would be that they would refuse insurance coverage for someone because of their color of their skin, or their if they were poor, or if they happened to be members of the LGBTQ+. So is that what you're saying? Is that you'd be concerned about that as well?
Senator, factors, those factors are the type of non-financial, non-coverage, non-underwriting matters that we're concerned about. We want to know what's going on.
So I mean, this session's been an interesting session. I've heard so many people want to get rid of DEI, but now you're saying to me, we want to know if the insurance company refuses coverage because of DEI. You just want them to tell us. Is that what you're saying?
Senator, the bill requires reports to be issued, and so this amendment goes to those reports that are required under the bill. So this amendment's just about disclosure.
Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well, thank you, Senator.
Senator West, for what purpose?
Question of the author.
You yield, Senator.
Of course, I'll yield.
Thank you.
I just want to make certain that I understand the amendment. Okay, I'm starting on line 8. A report under this section must disclose any decision to decline to issue, cancel, or refuse to renew an insurance policy that was based on a score, blah, 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 or based on DEI,
Yes, sir.
right?
That's right.
So if someone declines to issue based on DEI, that's a violation of this amendment, right? If they decide to cancel or refuse to renew based on DEI, that's a violation.
Well, they'd have to report it under this amendment.
Right.
They'd have to put it in that report. That's right. This is about disclosure.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you, Senator.
Senator Eckhart, for what purpose?
To ask questions of the author.
Senator Hughes, you yield?
Of course, I'll yield.
And my apologies to you, Senator Hughes. I am just confused here. So your amendment requires, along with the disclosure of the reason for cancellation, they must also state whether that reason was based on ESG or DEI.
Senator, if the intent of this amendment, and I think the meaning would say, the words would say, a report under this section must disclose any decision to decline based on. So if the decision was not based on ESG or DEI, then they would not be implicated by this. But the document I read from earlier, again, this was shocking, and this has been on the internet. I'll give you a copy of it, but it says the reason for non-renewal. This is on the insurance company's letterhead. The reason for non-renewal is we have learned from your Facebook page that your operations include trade association involved in promoting social, political causes related to energy production. This is not an acceptable exposure under carriers' business segments guidelines. Now, we met with them and they offered us an explanation. But we've asked them for more information. We want to know how many of these are out there. We know there are more. And so, yes, ma'am, this is about disclosing. If you're looking at politics, the color of someone's skin, their political positions, if that's affecting canceling insurance, we want to know about it. That's exactly right.
So this is going to create sort of a self-reportage by insurance carriers for us to, or someone, to later go in and prosecute or this self-disclosure? What is this for?
Senator, we want to know if this notice that's been publicized, if this is 1 in a million or 1 in a billion, that's great. if there are more of these, and we have reason to believe there are, we want to know about it. It's about disclosure. It's about sunshine.
I'm trying to get to the harm you're trying to cure here. You're saying that this insurance carrier actually already sent that letter to somebody canceling their insurance, and you want to make sure that all such insurance carriers canceling insurance have similar letters that clearly declare why they're canceling your policy.
Well, Senator, the letter that they send to their insureds is a separate matter. This bill, Senator Middleton's bill, requires reporting, and we are, again, with the authors and the Senate's blessing, adding this to that report that's required under the bill. So we want to know how many claims did you deny, refuse to renew, or cancel based on these non-insurance, non-underwriting, non-financial factors.
Thanks for answering my question.
No, thank you, Senator.
Senator Johnson, for what purpose?
Questions of the author of the amendment?
Senator Hughes, do you yield?
Of course I'll yield.
And we may need to enlist the help of the author of the bill. Reminds me a little bit of Senator Sparks' bill regarding insurance and TDI. And I don't know if what's in this bill, but the definitions in that bill of environmental and social and governance included accounting procedures, employment practices, employee training. So I'm wondering if we're talking about an insurance company that might deny coverage of, say, officer and director liability or sexual harassment claims, and if this would somehow make it difficult for them to deny coverage on the basis of perfectly legitimate evaluation of corporate practices.
Well, Senator, the reporting is about the reason for denial. And so if we're talking about financial risk, risk of claims, underwriting decisions like that, then that's going to come out in these reports. I don't know if you've seen the document I was reading
I have
from.
not.
But let me just make sure we don't miss it. That these are their words, not mine. And it says, the reason for non-renewal is we have learned from your Facebook page that your operations include trade association involved with promoting social, political causes related to energy production. This is not an acceptable exposure under carriers' business segment guidelines. And so we'd like to know how many times this is happening.
And
that's
might be
legitimate. And I make no apology for wanting to know if this is happening more than right, because we believe it is.
And I'm not sure I'm against your amendment or for it. I'm just trying to figure out a little bit more. The nature of that document you just held up, what kind of insurance was that?
It says a notice of non-renewal of insurance. This was property and casualty insurance. It was on someone's leased
Property
office.
casual insurance.
That's right. And again, we've been in contact with the carrier, and they're working with us to see how many more letters like this went out. And I haven't mentioned their name, though this has been all over the internet. And I can assure you I didn't create that document.
What are we going to do with this information once we have it?
Beg your pardon?
Well, if we get this information from the insurance companies, what's our long-term goal with the information?
If we learn that insurance carriers that are licensed to do business in Texas are making decisions based on politics, based on inappropriate considerations like that, we want to know about that. I would think customers would want to know whether I'm going to do business with an insurance company that is making decisions like that.
Thank you.
Senator Miles, for what purpose?
Question to the author of the amendment.
Senator Hughes, do you yield?
Of course I'll yield.
Senator Hughes, can you reference an issue or an incident where this amendment originated from that you're trying to?
So, go ahead, I cut you off.
Can you reference an issue or an incident?
Yes, sir. The document I was reading from is a notice of non-renewal that a Texan received, and they said
an individual.
Yes, sir. And they said, well, it was a business. It was a business. They said we looked at your Facebook page, and we didn't like what you were doing. I don't want to paraphrase it. I'll read it to you again if you'd like to hear it, or I think you've seen the document. It says we don't like what's on your Facebook page, and thank you, and social political causes related to energy production. So that's where this comes from.
So does the intent of this amendment, it's a DEI amendment, correct?
It's an amendment that talks about denying insurance policies
Based
for reasons
on?
other than insurance. That's right.
Based on,
Based on ESG, DEI. The idea is if they non-renew my insurance, it ought to be based on claims, on risk,
Correct.
on underwriting.
I agree.
And you understand this is,
I agree.
Of course you understand. This is only about denying insurance. That's what this is about.
okay.
It's the only thing this applies to. Non-renewal, denial of coverage, canceling coverage.
But there's no reference in the amendment if the DEI is accepted or if you're supporting it or not supporting it, correct?
The reports are only about denial of coverage. Denial of coverage. So it would mean
Denial
they
of
would
coverage.
deny you coverage
But
based on DEI
in your reference,
factors.
you don't say if that company was in support of DEI or that company was in support of DEI or against DEI.
It just
you don't
means
reference that, do you?
That's right. It means they denied you coverage based on these factors. That's right. It's only about denial of coverage or non-renewal. It's not about granting insurance. It's about denying coverage, non-renewing, or canceling policies based on these non-financial factors.
So is your intent to protect consumers?
Well, Senator, that's right. We want to know if insurance companies are making decisions based on politics or based on underwriting and insurance principles. These companies are licensed by the state of Texas.
And this has been the only incident that you know of, the one that you spoke of?
This is the only document that's been made public. I can tell you that there are other entities that are investigating this, but I can tell you this is the only one that's been made public so far. Please take a look. And I haven't mentioned the carrier, but this has been out on the internet. I didn't put it out there, but somebody else did. And the carrier is cooperating with us. Let me be fair. They saw this, and they're supposed to show us what else is going on, and we're going through a process with them now. It has not yet required a subpoena.
I'm not quite sure if this is a witch hunt or I was with the bill, Senator. I don't know if I'm with this amendment. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Johnson, for what purpose?
Question a real quick follow-up question regarding the amendment.
Senator Hughes, you yield?
I'll yield, of course.
Senator Hughes, this one's easier. The bill, as I understand it, already requires insurers to provide a written statement of why they're declining. Is this just duplicative?
Senator, I make no apology for making insurance companies tell us if they're denying coverage based on politics. That's what the amendment does.
I'm just wondering if this is duplicative of the existing requirement statute.
We want them to know we're serious about this.
So
Anybody who wasn't shocked by that document, I'm surprised at. And so respectfully, we want to know if insurance companies are doing this more than just this one isolated case with all the policies in Texas.
Well, I think that the bill as written would have done that without this kind of ESG statement, but I don't really see any harm at this moment in your amendment. So despite its duplicative nature and possible political messaging, I think I'll support you in it.
Thank you, Senator.
The chair recognizes Senator Middleton on floor amendment number 2.
The amendment is acceptable to the author.
Senator Middleton has moved the amendment acceptable to the author. Is there objection? There is objection. Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hagenboo, Hall, Hancock, Hinojosa of Nueces, Hinojosa of Hidalgo, Huffman, Hughes, Johnson, King, Colcourse, Menendez, yes, Middleton, Miles, okay, Nichols, Parker, Paxton, Perry, Schwertner, Sparks, West, Zaffarini, Campbell, Gutierrez,
There being 25 ayes, 4 nays, the amendment passes. Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move passage to engrossment for Committee Substitute Senate Bill 1006.
Senator Middleton moves passage to engrossment. Is there objection? There is. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckert.
There being 27 ayes and 4 nays, the bill passes to engrossment. Senator Middleton, you're recognized for a motion to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Thank you, Mr. President. So move.
Senator Middleton moves suspension of the 3-day rule. The Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell.
There being 27 ayes and 4 nays, the rules are suspended. The chair lays out on third reading and final passage of Senate Bill 1006. The Secretary will read the caption.
Senate Bill 1006 relating to declination, cancellation, or non-renewal of insurance policies.
Senator Eckert, for what purpose?
To still speak in favor of the bill on final passage.
Senator Eckert, you're recognized.
I am in this bizarro circumstance where the bill is a good bill and I support it so much that I've signed on as a co-author. This amendment is ironically the thing that Senator Hughes is complaining about, which is a political denial of insurance. The amendment itself is political. Your bill already says the carrier must disclose its reason for denial. I still don't understand the reason for this amendment other than political posturing. But I am going to vote for your bill. I am saddened that the bill has been freighted with some political baggage that is wholly unnecessary. But this is a good bill, and it's right for consumers. So I am a yes on this bill.
Senator West, for what purpose?
Just a speech.
Yes.
I don't want to do a speech, but I want to.
Senator West, you're recognized to speak on the bill.
Okay, members, I know some of us may see the boogeyman on this. I don't see the boogeyman. I'm supporting the bill. And because I want to know whether or not an insurance company is denying renewal because of DEI. I want to know that, because if they are, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure I boycott them. So understand that I think it was a great, maybe unintentional, but I think it was a great, I don't want to say it's unintentional. I think Senator Hughes put it out there for us to consider, and so I'm supportive of the bill.
Senator Middleton is recognized for a motion.
Move final passage.
Senator Middleton moves final passage of Senate Bill 1006. The secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez, Hickenbooth.
There being 31 ayes and 0 nays, the bill is finally passed. Congratulations, Senator Middleton.
Had an interesting trip.
Senator Johnson, you're recognized to suspend the regular order of business on Senate Bill 1343.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, I move to suspend the regular order of business to take up and consider Senate Bill 1343.
Members, it's a little loud. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 1343 picks up where we left off last session with Senate Bill 2105. We passed out of this chamber and out of the House. It's now law. It basically tackles the problem of data privacy. We had data brokers that were managing people's information, and it was really impossible for people to exercise their rights. So we made it easier last session, but we found out in practice over the past 2 years, this is why interims are good, that people were still having trouble exercising their privacy rights that exist under state law with respect to data that is collected by data brokers. What this bill does is follow the recommendations of different observers in this space that we require the data brokers to include in the registration statement a link to a website that allows people to exercise their rights directly. Secondly, it requires them to post on their own website specific instructions to consumers about how they can exercise their data privacy rights. That's all it does, members. That's why I'm moving to suspend the regular order of business and pass Senate Bill 1343.
Any objection? Hearing none. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out in second reading. Senate Bill 1343. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 1343 relating to the notice requirements of a data broker registration statement and internet website.
You're recognized.
I move passage to engrossment.
Any objection? Hearing none. Bill passes to engrossment. You're now recognized to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
I move to suspend the constitutional rule that bills be heard on 3 consecutive days.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell.
31 ayes, no nays. Rule suspended. Chair now lays out in third reading and final passage. Senate Bill 1343. Secretary, read the caption.
Senate Bill 1343 relating to notice requirements of a data broker registration statement and internet website.
You're recognized on final.
I move final passage of Senate Bill 1343.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
And they said it couldn't be done. 31-0. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and 31 members.
You know, Senator Alvarado, I don't know what's happening. 31-0 for him. Mays and Eckhart together. Kumbaya on a bill. It's just great. Senator Parker, you're recognized to suspend the regular order of business. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 958. Senate Bill 958.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to suspend the Senate's regular order of business to take up and consider the committee substitute of SB 958. Survivors of human trafficking often face significant barriers to recovery and reintegration into society, including difficulty finding employment, housing, and other resources due to their criminal records resulting from actions they were forced to take by their traffickers. Non-disclosure of these criminal records can help survivors move forward in their lives, which is why the committee substitute 958 is such a crucial piece of legislation. This program allows survivors to shield their criminal records from potential landlords or jobs, but still allows law enforcement to access those records should they need them in the future. This allows survivors to rebuild their lives while still allowing law enforcement access to necessary public safety information. Currently, the records of trafficking survivors can only be sealed of misdemeanor theft, prostitution, marijuana offenses, but the committee substitute to 958 aims to expand the list of sealable offenses to include all misdemeanor offenses dealing with drugs, forgery, or government documents, and public intoxication. Why, you might ask? Because these are the offenses that are commonly used by traffickers to coerce and control their victims. For example, traffickers commonly force their victims to use narcotics like methamphetamine and heroin to keep their victims attached to their traffickers as suppliers. It also keeps the victims from going to the police for help and fear of retribution. Public intoxication goes hand in hand with this issue. By allowing survivors to seal these offenses that were committed as a victim of trafficking, the committee substituted 958 provides a significant tool to support survivors in their recovery and help them move forward in their lives. To be able to combat the stigma and discrimination against survivors, which contributes to their challenges in finding employment, housing, going back to school, and many other things in life. A final note, the substitute to 958 does not in any way alter the current process for survivors to seal their records. They will still have to go through the exact same processes as they now do to convince a court that the crime on their record occurred as a result of them being a victim of trafficking. Members, I urge your support of the committee substitute of SB 958 to provide critical support for survivors of human trafficking and help them move forward with their lives. Mr. President, I move suspension.
Any objection? Hearing none. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading. Committee substitute for 958. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 958 relating the eligibility of certain victims of trafficking of persons or compelling prostitution for an order of non-disclosure of criminal history record information.
You're recognized. Passage to engrossment.
Mr. President, I move passage to engrossment.
Any objection? Hearing none. Bill passes to engrossment. You're recognized to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Bardwell.
21 ayes, no nays. The rule is suspended. Chair lays out third reading and final passage. Committee substitute for Senate Bill 958. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 958 relating the eligibility of certain victims of trafficking of persons or compelling prostitution for an order of non-disclosure of criminal history record information.
You're recognized and final.
Mr. President, I move final passage.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Bardwell.
21 ayes, no nays. It's always good to pass an important bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, members.
Members, this will be the last bill we take up. We're going back to Senator West bill. And also for your planning tomorrow, it will be a lighter day. There could be a number of bills we would bring to the floor, which would take hours of debate. So tomorrow you've put in 8 or 9 hard weeks. I think we passed 120 bills or 130 bills. So we have some important work tomorrow, important resolution, memorial resolution, but it will not be a long day tomorrow like it has been today. Okay? Respect your time. Senator West, we are back on committee substitute for Senate Bill 650.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. At this time, I'd move to suspend the Senate regular order of business, take up and consider Senate Bill 650.
Secretary will call the roll. Any objections? Oh. Go ahead and call the roll. Madam Secretary, just go ahead and call it.
Alvarado, Bettencourt, Birdwell, Blanco, Campbell, Cook, Creighton, Eckhart, Flores, Gutierrez.
31 ayes, no nays. The rules are suspended. Chair lays out on second reading committee substitute for Senate Bill 650. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 650 relating to requiring the use of electronically readable information to verify a purchaser's age in the retail sale of alcoholic beverages.
The following amendment, members. Does everyone have the amendment? Have we passed it out? Secretary will read the amendment.
Floor amendment number 1 by West and Perry.
Senator West or Senator Perry, either one, why don't you walk slowly through this and the amendment?
I'm going to walk slowly through the amendment, members. Again, it's what we do is require that an establishment that has a license that's subject to this particular bill asks to see the identification of the person that's purchasing the liquor, and also make certain that they have a ability to be able to read the identification card or driver's license of the person that's purchasing. We also put in place a provision whereby if a business has an electronic readable information machine, that they can utilize that to put the person's identification information in that particular machine. One of the things that came up is whether or not, well, let me also say that what we do in Section 1 of the bill is that we had an exemption in there for holders of a package store permit. We decided to take that out, but we replaced it with the holder of a food and beverage certificate operating in a restaurant on the premises, so restaurants won't be subject to this particular bill. We also make certain that we address some of the issues that came up on the floor, specifically as it relates to adding an exception for the inability to have access to an internet. We make that exception, and we prohibit retaining any information from the scanner where they're scanning the identification. Those are the major portions of this amendment, members.
Members, the motion is on the amendment. Any objections? Hearing none, the amendment is adopted. You recognize passage to engrossment.
Move passage to engrossment.
Any objection? Hearing none, bill passes to engrossment. You recognize suspend the constitutional 3-day rule.
Don't move.
Secretary will call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes and no nays. The rule is suspended. Chair now lays out in third reading and final passage. Committee for substitute for Senate Bill 650. Secretary, read the caption.
Committee substitute Senate Bill 650, relating to requiring the use of electronically readable information to verify a purchaser's age in the retail sale of alcoholic beverages.
Senator West, a few bills here in the last hour have shown how all members work together for good of Texans, and you're recognized on final.
Mr. President, one of the other portions of that amendment was to name this particular act after the victim of underage drinking. So we're naming this the Deshaun Jasmine Act. And his mother and family are here. And members, it just kind of shows you. Some people may say, well, is this a vendor bill? No, it's not a vendor bill. You know, a lot of times the people that catch, as we used to say, the early bus, they really don't have paid lobbyists. And we as members take our time to make certain we represent them because they're constituents. And that's what this is all about. His mother and family's here. And so I would ask that we pass this bill in honor of his mother's advocacy. Coming by my office, my law office on top of that, okay? And wanted to make certain that we address it. So I'd move final passage of Committee Substitute Senate Bill 650 as amended, the Deshaun Zagwin Act, and also recognize his mother that's here today and tell her thank you for being an advocate for this particular bill. Let's give her a hand. I move final passage. Thank you, Mr. President, also for making certain that we come together as a body to pass this bill.
We're sending a strong message. If you're selling liquor, you need to be sure no one under 21 is buying it.
And remember, it's a privilege in the state of Texas to sell it.
Yes, it's a privilege to sell it. Secretary, call the roll.
Alvarado, Betancourt, Birdwell, Blanco.
31 ayes and no nays. Thank you, members. All members, the bill finally passes. Members, the President's desk is clear. Any announcements? Senator Birdwell.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, let me remind the members that the Committee on Natural Resources will reconvene at 6:40 in E1012 upon adjournment. Thank you, Mr. President and members.
Senator Colcourse?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Senate Committee on Health and Human Services will reconvene right here on the Senate floor at I have to give a definite time, at 6:35 when the tables will be set up. Thank you.
Any other announcements? The chair recognizes the Dean of the Senate for a highly privileged motion.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adjourn until 10 a.m. Thursday, March 27th, in memory of Lamar Oslin Lewis, constituent of Senator Flores.
Any objection? Hearing none. The Senate stands adjourned until 10 a.m. Thursday, March 27th. Thank you, members.